It was after a long day of skiing. I was driving home on the Alyeska Highway, a long, icy road with lots of curves and bends. It had been a long and tiring day, and the warmth of the car and the softness of the seat made me feel drowsy. My eyes kept closing on their own, and I had to consciously shake myself awake to keep them open and on the road. I felt like I was being dragged down, but I was sure I could handle it long enough to get home. Then, suddenly, my skiing buddy shouted at me to look out! Just in time, I swerved back into my lane. That was a close call.
During this segment, I'm going to teach you about the basics of the sleep cycle and rhythm. Both of these are important aspects of sleep that impact us on a daily basis. So let's get started. First, let's talk about the sleep cycle. There are two basic types of sleep: rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, and non-REM sleep, which consists of 3 different stages. Each one is linked to specific brain waves and neuronal activity. We cycle through all stages of non-REM and REM sleep several times during a night, with increasingly longer, deeper REM periods occurring toward morning. Stage 1 non-REM sleep is the shift between wakefulness and sleep. During this short period, your heartbeat, breathing, and eye movements slow, and your muscles begin to relax. Stage 2 non-REM sleep is a period of light sleep before you enter deeper sleep. Your muscles relax even further as your body temperature drops and eye movement stops. Stage 3 non-REM sleep is the period of deep sleep that you need to feel refreshed in the morning. It occurs in longer periods during the first half of the night. REM sleep occurs about 90 minutes after falling asleep. Your eyes move rapidly as brain activity becomes closer to that seen in wakefulness. Dreaming occurs during REM sleep. During dreams, your legs and arms become temporarily paralyzed, which prevents you from acting out your dreams, which can be pretty problematic depending on what kind of dreams you have. Now that we've discussed the sleep cycle, let's talk about the natural rhythm of our bodies that regulates when we are awake and asleep. Circadian rhythms direct a wide variety of functions, such as body temperature, metabolism, and the release of hormones. They cause you to be sleepy at night and wake up in the morning without an alarm. Most circadian rhythms are controlled by your body's biological clock, which is based on a 24-hour day. This process is based off environmental cues such as light and temperature, but they continue even in the absence of cues. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this segment about the basics of the sleep cycle and rhythm.
Awesome. Now we're going to talk about the 6 most common sleep disorders, and that would include insomnia, sleep apnea, narcolepsy, restless leg syndrome, and parasomnias, as well as circadian disorders. So as far as insomnia is concerned, that can be described by trouble falling asleep or staying asleep that results in some form of daytime impairment. Insomnia is a symptom that can become a syndrome. What is it like to live with chronic insomnia? That usually would entail fatigue or malaise, impairment of attention, concentration, and memory, mood disturbances, perhaps academic performance impairment, and daytime sleepiness as well. Oftentimes, the initial treatment for insomnia would be cognitive behavioral therapy. Then we have sleep apnea, which is a sleep disorder in which your breathing repeatedly stops and starts during sleep. So there are a couple types of sleep apnea. The first and most common would be obstructive sleep apnea. That's where your throat muscles relax during sleep. So when those muscles relax, your airway narrows or closes as you breathe in, which means you can't get enough air, which can lower the oxygen level in your blood. So at that point, your brain senses your inability to breathe and briefly rouses you from sleep so that you can reopen your airway. This awakening is usually so brief that you don't remember it. Then we have central sleep apnea, which occurs when your brain doesn't send proper signals to the muscles that control your breathing. And thirdly, there's complex sleep apnea, which is a combination of both. Then we have parasomnias, which are undesirable events or experiences that occur during entry into sleep, within sleep, or during arousal from sleep. There are 2 categories of parasomnias. So we have NREM-related parasomnias, which include confusional arousals, sleepwalking, and sleep terrors. And then we have REM-related parasomnias, which include REM sleep behavior disorder, recurrent isolated sleep paralysis, etc. So for sleepwalking, that's most evident during the first third of the night. And sleepwalking episodes can range from sitting up in bed to actually getting up and walking around. Then we have sleep terrors, which are characterized by a sudden arousal from slow wave sleep, with a piercing scream or cry accompanied by autonomic and behavioral manifestations of intense fear. Within REM sleep behavior disorder, you have punching, kicking, leaping, and running from the bed during attempted dream reenactment. Within recurrent isolated sleep paralysis, you have a transient inability to perform voluntary movements upon awakening, and these episodes can vary in duration from seconds to several minutes. The biggest difference between sleep terrors and nightmares, although there are multiple, is that nightmares occur out of REM sleep, not out of slow wave sleep, and nightmares usually do not involve major motor activity. There's considerably less anxiety, vocalization, and autonomic discharge during nightmare. Then we have restless leg syndrome, which is a condition characterized by a nearly irresistible urge to move the legs, typically taking place in the evenings. Then we have narcolepsy, which is a chronic sleep disorder that causes overwhelming daytime drowsiness and sudden attacks of sleep. Sudden loss of muscle tone and hallucinations might occur. And finally, we have circadian disorders, i.e. jet lag or delayed sleep phase syndrome, and these are most commonly caused by a misaligned circadian clock. Some symptoms of these circadian disorders would be insomnia, daytime sleepiness, dysphoric mood, diminished physical performance, cognitive impairment, gastrointestinal disturbances, and oftentimes the effects of jet lag include exacerbating circadian misalignment by desynchronizing the body clock to the local environment. So point about jet lag. The greatest risk of jet lag happens when crossing 3 or more time zones, and jet lag symptoms tend to worsen when traveling from west to east. So thank you. It's been a brief introduction to the 6 most common sleep disorders.
We'll be talking about misconceptions about sleep and factors affecting sleep quality. Some factors affecting sleep quality include caffeine, temperature, light, diet, stress, alcohol, exercise, and travel. So a lot of these factors are factors that people don't really consider because people just think about getting enough sleep, for example, 8 hours, as being the most important contributor to sleep quality. But we're going to talk a little bit about some of the myths around sleep quality and what the actual information is behind those. So one is that you can bank sleep. So this is not actually true, because if you sleep more in previous nights, it doesn't actually mean that you can reduce the amount of sleep that you need in the subsequent nights, because sleep is really important for like memory consolidation and sort of synaptic cleanup that is necessary sort of after the fact of a passing day to maintain alertness. So you can't just store sleep additionally. Another myth is that sleep duration is the only important factor to sleep quality, but a lot of things play into it, including consistency. And for example, using drugs and alcohol can reduce the effectiveness of sleep and how alert you feel the next day, even if you sleep the exact same amount. And other things like if there's bright lights or high temperatures, it could interrupt your sleep to a degree where you're not fully rested despite the exact same sleep duration. Another myth is that sleep deprivation isn't all that bad, but actually sleep deprivation leads to a lot of chronic lifestyle things such as like heart diseases or diabetes, weight gain, and other things, and also directly to things like motor vehicle accidents and machinery accidents. Another thing is that drinking alcohol helps you sleep. Actually, even though alcohol is a depressant and it helps people fall asleep, it actually impairs REM sleep and reduces the production of melatonin, which generally reduces the effectiveness of sleep. So even if you can fall asleep, you actually feel less rested and not alert the following days. And another one is that everyone needs 8 hours of sleep. People have different genetic dispositions for how much sleep they need, and this can vary over a lifespan and across different populations as well. Another one is if you can't fall asleep, you should keep trying to fall asleep in your bed. But what actually should happen is if you can't fall asleep for like 20 minutes, you should get up and do other activities. And that would actually be more productive than just staying in bed and not being able to fall asleep, because that creates anxiety around trying to fall asleep.
Ugh, I got so much work to do. A P-set, 2 essays. It's all due tomorrow. Guess I'm just gonna have to stay up late tonight. Might even need to pull an all-nighter. And I only got 5 hours of sleep last night. And I really hope all this sleep deprivation doesn't add up over time.
Unfortunately, that's exactly what the science shows. Sleep deprivation doesn't just affect your next day, it can cause you to accumulate sleep debt the longer you stay deprived. Your body and brain need a certain amount of sleep each week, and if you don't get enough, the lack of sleep adds up. How can you detect sleep debt? Well, for one, you can keep track of your sleep patterns. If you notice you are consistently sleeping less than 7 hours a night, you're almost certainly accumulating sleep debt. Another way to tell would be to rate yourself using the Epworth Sleepiness Scale, a scientifically derived qualitative measurement of how much you need sleep at any given time. What are the negative impacts of sleep debt? I feel totally fine even on 4 hours or less of sleep. Why should I make a change? Well, even if you think you're doing fine, studies have shown that we often overestimate our own wakefulness. In one fatigue study by Mark Rosekind, surgeons were kept up for 24 hours prior to a mock-up surgical operation. During the operation, the surgeons were shaky and uncoordinated, yet they consistently reported feeling wide awake. Even when their brain waves showed, they spent around 68% of the time asleep. According to the National Transportation Safety Board, fatigue is either the cause or a contributing factor to an astonishing 20% of transportation-related accidents in the United States. We say that drowsiness is red alert, and that's because as soon as you feel drowsy while driving, you're in danger. You might think that you're wide awake, but statistically speaking, you're most likely falling into a light sleep for a few seconds at a time as you drive drowsy. These are called microsleeps, and though they're short, even a few seconds can mean the difference between life and death. If you're driving and feel drowsy, don't risk it. Just find a place to stop, or at least make sure someone else in the car is watching over you. How can you fix your sleep debt? Well, there's no way around it. You need to catch up on sleep. No amount of coffee or energy drinks will save you. You just need to re-examine your calendar and make time for around 7 hours of sleep every night.